You can, I mean, I like, you know, I don't agree with David on the war and so on, but his, you know, they genuinely are very close. And David Starkey's cynicism is but is quite wrong in this case.
Let's go. We've got a question from John Batchelor. John Batchelor, please.
Is it manna from heaven for the Tories that Labour are now led by a Jewish, atheist, unmarried father with left-of-centre leanings?
David Starkey?
No, not. That would be dreadful. If those things were exploited, it would be shocking.
What, left of centre?
No, the left of centre is fine. It's
unmarried father? No.
Unmarried father, Jewish, atheist. I'm unmarried because I'm gay, I'm atheist, and I'm still an out Tory. And the only reason I'm sure that I don't have children born out of wedlock is that I don't have children. The Tory party, and here again this is the great difference from IDS, the Tory party now is not like that. The Tory party, I hope, is not like that. It's no longer this sentimental worship of the mentality of the shires and the gin and tonic circuit, and if it is, that will be catastrophic. What I think is the much greater problem with Ed, and we haven't really talked about the really serious things, is the extent to which Labour is now becoming utterly sectarian and local. You look at the political map of England, and you look where is red, and it's the tiny, tiny fringe and a few large cities. It's not even that Labour is a trade union party anymore. There's something much more fundamental about it. It's the party of the public sector. And the real danger is, I think, that we are going to see profound strife within our society. We know what the cuts are going to do. And a Labour Party that is in hock, not simply to the unions, but to a very particular type of union. The unions in the public sector are overwhelming. The unions in the private sector barely exist at all. And those are the dangers, not the bogies of the past that you're referring to.
John Batchelor, do you see these things as bogies of the past?
No, I tend to agree. I don't think David Cameron and the Tories will be nervous about the election of the new leader, but not because of any of these things. I think it's because of his lack of experience.
Why do you mention these things then? The Jewish, atheist, unmarried father?
Because points of interest, and I would imagine that all the groups who represent those various groups will have something to say about it, but hopefully not the Tories.
Simon Hughes?
Well, apart from the fact they did have the first Jewish Prime Minister, although he was a Christian convert, Israeli, in the same way the Tories had the first woman. You know, the private lives of many very leading Tories is hardly perfect.
We don't need to know these things.
Someday you'll grow up. You'll actually discover the real world and these shocking things.
Simon Hughes.
All the three personal characteristics you mentioned are now almost irrelevant in public life. Thank God. We can have a country where you can be of different faiths or of no faith, where you can be married or unmarried, where you can be gay or straight. I don't think yet we've gone far enough, and Diane and others are right to say, until we have a country where you have equal opportunities if you're a woman and equal opportunities if you're black to get into politics with Prime Minister, actually we haven't arrived. So we've got a lot of work to do yet, but we are moving in the right direction. I don't think those are reasons why there'll be any problem. I think the big telling point, it was in the headline on the Nationals yesterday, is that we have somebody who's a new Labour leader, and that's the difference from David, who basically made a speech saying we were wrong. On all the big issues, on Iraq, on civil liberties, on all the other big issues, we were wrong. And I agree with Brian. And it's no good having leaders who are wrong after the event. You want leaders who were wrong at the time you make the decision. Labour made the wrong decision on the Iraq war. We needed people to stand out then, not later to come. We needed people to stand for civil liberties then, not when they put all the law through. So that's what worries me.
But is it a worry for you as a Liberal Democrat that you now have somebody leading the Labour Party who says we've got to change and we were wrong? Surely that's a big problem for you as well.
My older brother sent me a voicemail message just after Ed's speech saying, I think I've just sent an application to join the Liberal Democrats. In Ed's speech. No, I mean, because there were so many things where he had one view and now has taken a view which is our view. And I welcome that conversion. Obviously he's not going to jump
Maybe it'll go the other way then. Maybe Liberal Democrats will now say it's safe to join the Labour Party.
No.
But that's what they claim. That's what they claim is happening.
Well, that's what they claim.
What was it Ed Miliband said yesterday? 2,000. A new member every minute.
Of course.
I don't know if it's still going on. It's now quite late in the evening. But I mean, I don't know how it's going, but that's what they were saying.
All I know is, and I check our figures regularly, that our membership has gone up significantly since election in May.
Since the coalition?
Absolutely.
How much has it gone up by?
By at least 6,000.
Are they all... Aren't some of them Tories then?
No. But the really interesting thing, I don't think that David Miliband would have said that. I think he would have said, we were right at the time, we made the best judgment we could, and we now have to move on. And my worry is that if Ed is so willing to change Labour around, then I think people are not very certain where they're going to end up.
Brian Cox.
Well, of course, any prejudice of race, religion, I'm completely against. And I think, you know, it doesn't matter whether he was Chinese, Jewish. I mean, the makeup of this country is no longer the makeup this country was in the 1950s. It has a diversity of peoples, and those peoples have to be embraced, and everybody has to have their chance. So it's, I don't think that the Conservatives for 1 minute would think that. What I wanted to take up one point that David made, which is the fact that sectarian, how Labour Party was sectarian. But what is interesting for me is that, even though I spend a bit of time in this country, but what is interesting for me that even I would have thought the Conservatives are pretty sectarian. They seem to be fairly tight together. I've noticed that, for instance, in Scotland, they don't have a single seat.
Yes, we do.
One.
Yeah, but Scotland's 5 million people. England is just short of 60. And if you look at the distribution of seats in England, it tells its own story. The whole of the southeast and beyond, right up to the Midlands, the historic heart of England, is blue. Solid.
Well, so it's probably,
it's blue.
it's probably slightly off the question. We'd love to have more seats in Scotland. In fact, if we get a decent vote in Scotland...
Stick to the question.
Yeah, I was going to say it's probably the wrong debate. No,
Manna from heaven, a character.
I don't think any of those things, of which many of us will be at least one of them, should have any impact at all.
Which one are you?
Jewish.
Jewish.
Should have any impact
Atheist?
at all.
Practicing.
I do occasionally to...
Jewish atheist.
Left of centre?
But I don't...
Left of centre,
certainly not left of
Republic,
centre in my case, no.
Unmarried
No, but that's why I said we're only one of them.
All right,
It just
okay.
happens to be, I don't think any of those things matter at all, except perhaps his politics time will tell. What I do think is, and I didn't jump in on the previous question, that it's kind of an odd situation when there were 50-odd leaderships debates for the Labour Party, including a question time, and they were repetitively asked, will you stand if your brother's elected between the two Milibands? Will you stand for the shadow cabinet? Will you be part of the team and try to take the Labour message forward? And both the Milibands answered yes on every occasion, if I remember correctly. So it's extraordinary just 4 days later to see one of them take their baton away.
Come back to the other side of this. Did you rejoice when Ed Miliband won as a Tory?
Well, I was actually slightly bemused by the system, and it looked right the way through.
No, but did you,
they were going
when
to...
you heard who won, did you rejoice? Because the Tories' first reaction was said to be that they rejoiced.
Well, I didn't exactly crack open champagne and sort of dance in the streets, but I mean, it's an internal party...
Who would you have feared more, David Miliband or Ed?
I think it just depends on what they do from the moment they're elected.
Of course it does, but in advance, and we're just talking about your first reaction.
Listen, you can never tell until
People said the Tories didn't want David Miliband, whatever else happened.
You can never tell until... Hold on. You can never tell until somebody's elected.
Everybody would rather
I thought that would be fantastic, but you never tell until somebody's elected.
Okay.
I endorsed Ed's campaign, by the way, one day on Daily Politics. He looked terribly shocked and worried, and I thought he'd blown it when I backed him. I said he'd make a nice leader for them and be very good. The thing is,
why did you say this?
I was just kidding, but he came from a long way behind.
The person up there, on the right, yes, you were waving, yes. Yes? Not drowning, but waving, yeah.
Simon Hughes talks about apologies from the Labour government. When is this coalition going to apologise for all the drastic cuts that they're taking at the moment?
Well, we can. I tell you what, we'll keep that, Simon, because we've got a question on exactly that, and I think we might go on to it. And it comes from Alex Finney, please. Alex.